City Boy, issue 1, Greg Pak writing with Mikayu Zhang on the art. This is our third of these We Are Legends books. There's one left after this, I think. And this is the character who can like sort of connect to the city and see where things are and like see the history of the city that was set up in one of those Lazarus Planet one-shots. And much like the Vigil, I'm going to compliment this right away for actually being an issue 1 that feels like you can jump in this without having read those prior things. That was a problem that the first book we got, which one was that?
Spirit World.
Spirit World.
I never read the previous stuff. I didn't have a problem when I read Spirit World. I didn't feel like I was missing loads.
No, although that one felt like a issue 0, even though it was only a couple pages. So
everything with like Cass already being in the Spirit World already felt like it was like a really important plot detail that was set up prior to me.
Fair enough.
But Vigil was a great first issue, and City Boy, I think it's a pretty good first issue. I think it's as good as a Vigil, but I think it sets up the character well enough.
It's pretty slow going first. It's not like a big bombastic full of action first issue. It's very much we're going to slowly introduce this, but it's compelling enough.
I like that how each 3 of these feel different, because this
they're very different
books, it feels like a throwback to earlier 2000s comics, and like this we get his origin, right? It's very straightforward, that we get some of these villains and whatnot. So I wasn't 100% in, and then we got to the last page, and I was like, "Oh, this is interesting."
Oh yeah, the last page definitely throws in something I did not see coming. So we'll talk about that a bit later. But I think like you say, all these 3 books feel different. You got the really magical Spirit World one. You've got the effectively like a Black Ops style Suicide Squad team, but more interesting because they're not just villains that have been put in a team. And then you've got this, which is kind of this interesting idea of like the city being a living, breathing like organism that can be tapped into by a character, and the idea that you revolve his first story about like helping a homeless person, which is kind of like the lost people who are in a city. They're part of the city in a way that's kind of different to like everyone else. I think it's a really interesting thematic touch. Honestly, the only problem, and it's not even a problem so much, the only conceptual thing that kind of felt a bit weird to me is that you've got this guy who's like a mob boss who's taking cuts of anything anyone finds. It feels like a really, like, I get taking cuts from like the other gangsters and people who are selling drugs or whatever, because they're making like reasonable money, so there's a cut to be taken.
Right.
Taking a cut from just stuff that homeless people find feels like you're not going to make a whole lot. That felt a little bit weird to me as a concept.
Think it is. It's about
power.
It is literally just about showing the power, and because even if it is just like a couple of dollars, it's about just because he can.
Right. It's an extortion thing, right? But
this can't be his main. This can't be his main way of making money, though.
No,
can't be.
And because even when we get to the characters that show up at the end, that's a much bigger pool, right? And this guy's just a small fish.
But it does the thing where he befriends this homeless man, and this homeless man's hurt later on by the bad guy, and that's the bad guy doesn't want City Boy to leave. He wants him to stick around and use his powers for him. So you feel some sympathy for the homeless guy who's been like tortured for this information to like tell him everything City Boy can do,
and then killed.
And then we also get a little bit of the origin of the flashbacks, which is how City Boy got his powers. Basically, you had this scientist who was trying to prove that the city is this kind of like thing you can tap into, but the meta gene or whatever, like, so basically something about it chose City Boy, who was just kind of spying on this meeting.
Right.
The energy, for whatever reason, like sought out and found him. And maybe it's because he'll do good with it. Maybe it is like a potential thing. Like maybe they'll dip into that as the story goes on. But like, so you get a little bit of backstory. You get him finding stuff like under the park benches and whatever, and pawning it for money. But yeah, we get this big ending where the guy is killed, and it seems like this scientist, and I think during the issue we don't know who he's working for, but by the end obviously we get the name Intergang, and it's like, wait a minute, and at the end of the issue it's like, okay, when City Boy fights back after the homeless guy is killed, obviously he sort of warps the building around him with his powers, and like basically it's kind of like a Hulk moment. He unleashes, and because of that, there's readings of like city, the stuff happening, and it's like, oh, we found the guy we're looking for. We finally found the boy, and then the final kind of what the F moment, the cliffhanger, is that the guy from Intergang is talking to here is Darkseid. Darkseid wants City Boy, which is so out of left field, it's actually quite exciting.
Oh, see, I loved it because it made this book make sense to me.
Really?
Throughout no, right. So the whole issue, this felt so much like Kirby's Jimmy Olsen.
Yeah.
Like I was getting that vibe. I'm like, this is cool.
In hindsight, that makes a lot of sense.
And then it got to the end with that, and I was like, oh my god, this is just a modern take, essentially, on that. Like, for all intents and purposes, this is just,
City Boy instead of Turtle Boy, right?
Yeah, basically.
Interesting.
I'm here for it.
Once that Darkseid reveal happens and it's Bruno Mannheim for Intergang, I was like, okay, this does feel like a very Kirby, concept, right? Where Kirby created Transylvania, right, which was a living vampire planet. like such a, that dude was on some things for sure. But so here with this boy this guy that can talk to the city, because the city is an organism that reached out and chose him because he was like one of these lost people himself, right? It's because he knew all the back doors and all the hiding spots and whatever from the way that he grew up. So, and on top of it, the fact that his mom seemingly abandoned him with his grandpa for whatever reason.
Yeah, that was the other thing at the start. So it's almost like humans have let him down. So he's sought refuge in the alleys and the streets and all that stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's why, now the cities chose him to be the representative. Because I remember when this book was in, when they were talking about it, Pac was like, yeah, each city though is different. And like, not every city is going to want to, necessarily help him. The guy's name is Cameron. Right. So like Gotham might be different than Metropolis and Star City and Coast City. Right.
It's Gotham he's in though just now, right?
No, this was Metropolis.
Is this Metropolis?
So Gotham was in the Lazarus Planet.
That's right. Because I knew he was in Gotham at some point. Yeah.
So I'm curious to see how that plays out because Metropolis seemingly really wants him there, right? Like they seem to get along because that was his home city almost. So like, what's it going to be like when he does go to Star City?
Interesting.
Or Central, right? So, but there's a lot of promise in this one for sure.
It's an interesting concept, just like what he is and how he connects to the city. And then you bring in the Darkseid looking for him stuff. It's like, okay, where are we going with that? That's quite fascinating. Yeah. I think the Vigil was such an exceptional first issue. This was never this had a tall order like going up against it, but it's still really solid. It says it makes you care about the character. He cares about the homeless guy who's been killed. So you're like, okay, he's got a heroic backbone. Even if it's not on the surface right away.
He's a good dude.
Yeah.
He's got that coming across for him.
So yeah, and I think the book looks solid. It's it's another good first issue. I'm 2 for 3 of these now because I wasn't super into Spirit World.
I'm shocked.
I said the same thing.
I gave it a chance. Okay, I gave it a fair chance.
I think you were probably never really the target market for that book, right?
That's fair, but it's the sort of thing where it can still work for me if you just tell the story in a way that appeals to me. It just really didn't.
Yeah. No, I think I prefer because I haven't read the video yet, and I'm just gonna go on a limb and assume that'll be my favorite because
it probably will be.
One, YouTube was saying really strong things about it, and two, Ramvi. I think I might prefer Spirit World over this, just on issue to issue. I think I had a little bit more fun with that, and it maybe just appeals to me a little bit more. But they're pretty close for me, and I do really like this as well. I think, as I say, it's last page aside, it's not a particularly exciting first issue. It is really much just like, no, we're going to take this slow, we're going to build into it. But I think I like that approach as opposed to just, right, here's 12 pages of action because we have to get your attention on a first issue.
It's funny you're saying that because that's exactly one of the thing I didn't like about Spirit World is that it threw too many of these concepts. Like there were so many moments in Spirit World where I would have liked probably if like the entire issue was just that scene building up to the spooky thing happening or the supernatural thing happening. I like a slower pace that makes all of it feel like each individual thing that's happening magically is a bigger deal. So here I like that it sort of builds up and it's just like, he's tempted to use his powers properly, he's like, oh no, but I'm holding them back. And then at the end of the issue, of course, when he's motivated and he's angry, it finally comes out. So.
And then you throw Darkseid into gang in there, and
you're like, Darkseid is here.
Yeah.
You got to pause after the is just to get the cadence right.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, solid. Like I say, all these new books coming out of Donna DC. I don't even know if these 4 count as Donna DC, but I'm effectively counting them as a subdivision of it.
I'm pretty sure they all do. Surely
they probably have the banner.
Yeah, it has the Donna DC banner on it.
So, all right, Matt, what are you rating City Boy issue 1?
I'm going to say 7.5.
All right, Connor.
Yeah, I'll probably agree with the 7.5.
Yeah, I think I'm kind of in that realm. I'll say 7.5 too. I think I'll agree with that.